What's up, everybody? I know. People said don't do that. Other people said go for it. Other people said amp it up. But anyway, it's been a while. Just figured I'd throw that in there just because I can. Anyway, so this video is strictly a K3 Mark III PLM video. I'm recording this on the K3 Mark III with the 1650 PLM. And I recorded a couple of videos using the K3 Mark III and the HD 55-300 PLM. And I also went out specifically to shoot very fast-moving birds, known as grackles, coming towards the camera along the Z-axis. Couple of things that I realized is our eyes and our brains play a lot of optical illusions. It's actually quite remarkable. We seem to be able to have an ability to, in a matter of speaking, slow time down when we see things. In regards to the camera, it's not going to do any of that for you. So the shutter speeds that a lot of people, for larger birds, 1/1600th of a second, 1/2000th of a second, 2500th of a second, that works fine. But for these kind of birds, especially being in fairly close proximity where they would actually fill the frame, you're looking at an absolute minimum of 1/4000th of a second. The reason being is the speed is a lot faster than you think. And especially when they're flapping their wings, they flap extremely fast. So even at 1/4000th of a second, the wingtips were blurred. So believe it or not, they were blurred. I'm going to show you that. The other thing too is the PLM lenses do focus extremely fast. Only under a specific condition though. And this is the technique that you should use anyways, regardless. So shouldn't be an issue. But if you are shooting and you're not in focus and the camera doesn't feel that it's close to being in focus, by the time the bird flies by, you're never going to get it in focus. It's just never going to happen. The bird is moving way faster than the lens can rack all the way across its focal range. So what you need to do is get a ballpark of where that object is or that subject, and it will focus that quick. That is something that I was stress testing. I just wanted to see what are the actual limits. So anyway, I did shoot a sequence of a grackle coming in, which I'm going to show you. It was flying up towards the camera, then it veered a little bit off to the side, but it was still coming towards along the Z-axis. And then it kind of went up a bit and landed on a tree. In between all that, I did lose it a couple times in the frame. And I know people are going to ask, what autofocus mode do I use? Great question. So what I generally use, and again, depends on the situation, it depends on the scene. Generally speaking, I will use select small, which is the same box area as the zone autofocus. I use AFC. Now, zone autofocus, the difference between zone and select small, the only real major difference is select small will allow you to pinpoint the center autofocus point, and then it will track from that point. Zone autofocus, you are relying on the camera to pick the correct subject. You don't have actual control over each specific autofocus point within that square grid. However, select autofocus will not allow the use of subject recognition. It sounds odd, but hear me out. Zone autofocus, because of the fact that we don't know the specific subjects that the camera is actually programmed to recognize with the deep learning, a lot of times it will pick things I don't want, even if there is some separation between the two subjects. So, and I've noticed this consistently. If there's a bird and the camera is programmed to recognize birds, but there's also trees. The camera is also programmed to recognize trees. So it doesn't know which one is the actual subject you specifically want to shoot. So it may jump off of the bird and go onto the tree. But I find that using select, I have more control over specifically what it is that the camera is focusing on. So that's why I use select. Now, the flip side of that is if it is a clear background, then yes, I will actually use zone. And it does work well. It does work very, very well. But there cannot be another recognizable subject in the frame. That's the one thing I've noticed. So for me, I think zone would work very, very well for people. It seems to work remarkably well for people. It captures eyes. It recognizes things a lot better than it does with a multi-tiered scene with multiple objects that it can recognize. But anyway, let's get into the video clips and the images, and yeah, that's about it. Let's go.